Hi everyone and welcome back to my studio. Today I'm doing daffodils. I will do a blocking and see how far I go with it. Maybe I'll split it into parts, maybe I'll just leave it as a blocking. I'm doing beautiful daffodils that I have in my garden blooming, and I will start with a bristle brush, and I have a mix of viridian and transparent oxide red. And I'm just starting from the spots of color. Everything that I see dark green or light green, I'm going to do those first. So I'm squinting. See some greens there, a little bit of greens there. So it's very thin. Very thin layer, but I might keep some of that thin layer after, especially in the shadows, so it should have enough paint to lay in the canvas so it wouldn't be completely transparent. So again, mixing viridian. So I have some very dark, and then I have some lighter ones. I may not talk as much at this stage. Like I said before, this is a very important stage for blocking in. So I'm using slightly lighter now variation of green, adding a little bit of yellow ochre, and then adding a little bit of white to viridian. Just see if I can do a lighter version. So my jar is really packed with those stems of daffodils, so hardly see any spaces in it, but there is some glass as well that I have to be aware of, that I need to paint. So now I'm going to go into the yellows. So I have a mix of yellow and white daffodils, but even white ones have some yellow in them. So I'm adding to yellow, cadmium yellow deep, a little bit of viridian and a little bit of that mixture from green and brown, transparent oxide red, and then more yellow, cadmium yellow deep. So squinting and see if I can get this color right, so a little bit lighter. So I'm adding cadmium yellow light to it. Just see the ones that I do in the shadow, those are first ones. So I'm trying to not to think about them as flowers, so there is more green actually in there. Try not to think about them as flowers, thinking more like spots of color. So I'm doing this one, these shapes, and then I'll go with the lighter ones as well. When I squint, I can hardly see these ones. There'll be some, I can see some green middles, so in here. So I'm trying to make sure those are dark enough. Maybe adding a little bit of transparent, not transparent, terra rosa, sorry. So the middles. It's middle of the flower, but I should look at it as a spot of color. Kind of more, I'll have to go lighter with these flowers and this one in particular later, but for now I'm trying to just focus on the main shapes. actually I had to add a little bit more of cadmium yellow light to make some of them a little lighter. So after I do all yellows, I'll go with the white flowers. Again, I focus at this point more on shadows, or like at least not shadows but the base color. There is a brightest white flower, but it's still has some yellow in it, so I'm doing the backgrounds of, so getting, I think starting getting slow into the white flowers here. And I think they have a lot of green in them, in their backs. So I'm painting those with some added white and some yellow. Try not to go too light or too dark. Try kind of keep the mid-tone at this point. Maybe I'll have to go lighter or darker somewhere, but not at this time, because I'll reserve my lightest lights as always for the very end. And right now it looks a little bit kind of even, I would say, muddy, but that's how I want it. It seems to be weird. I want it to be muddy. Really, I don't want it to be muddy, but I don't want it to be very bright at this point. That's how I should say. So go through some yellow daffodil at the back as well. Adding some even cooler tones kind of changes situation, and I think the whiter ones will be looking a little cooler and the yellow ones will be a little warmer. So I'm working with bristle brush and deliberately not allowing myself too much detail. There will be some greens and leaves and other peekaboo leaves, but that I can do a smaller brush later. So what I'm going to do now as well, I think that I could do these ones a little bit lighter, and maybe later a little bit greener. I want to go very bright in the shadow as well, only on these ones. I think that would be more like a color I want to go with. Same here, adding a little bit of green, and as you see I have enough paint to work with later if I want to change something, kind of modify, to add some edges or do things if I want to change something. Okay, so at this point I think I will go a little bit in the background. My background is very light color, but I think I'm I'm going to try to go with blue and orange and white, so that would be my kind of, it's not quite purple, but it's bluish, and when I squint it's actually very dark and cool in front here. I think I may even add more ultramarine in it to make it slightly darker. I will not see it completely until I put it on the, and it's okay that I have some yellow on my brush, it's not a big problem. And though I'm going to wash it a little, so I do a little bit of this grayish. As you can see, it's gray, but it's not gray brown, it's more like bluish gray. So look here it will be probably a little bit warmer. Yeah, I'll just add a touch of brown to it as well. So yeah, it goes a little bit warmer here. At the same time I'll do jar here is much darker, but I'll work on it later. And just quickly to roughly and quickly smudge it in or rub it in, just to see how it will look against my daffodils. So I'm sorry, I have this, I think it's from as a paint, or maybe it's from the paint, some bits. I had some old orange paint that I added, so I'm adding more blue to it because in the light it has more blue in it. Maybe it was in my brush, I didn't clean it properly, I'm not sure. Anyway, I'll keep working on it, just keep removing those. So if you see that, because on the color wheel blue is opposite to yellow and orange, when I go with it against yellow, even though they might be close in value, actually they're not. I'm going to correct it in a minute. I'm going to get a little bit darker, because when I squint it's actually way darker. So yes, that's kind of that. Get the value right is very important. So I had to go a little bit darker over there, and then go into there. So trying to work on silhouette and tonal values, and at the same time color, but color will be important at later stage. I mean, it's important now, but what I mean is tonal value is very important right now. So if I get it right, it will be very good. Because then your eye kind of starting getting used to it, and you don't see as good. The same as with silhouette. You can correct it later, but the tonal value should be right now. So this is a little bud of daffodil. So I noticed from the past, these buds normally open very fast, so I have to get the right shape later for it. So I'm adding a little bit more brown, a little bit more blue, and a little bit of white, just to get this color. And it's even darker here, and it goes on my tabletop as well. The same, the shadow is even darker, as a cast shadow from the jar. So what I'm going to, and the actual jar itself at the bottom here is quite dark. Also on the curve of the glass, I can see it's quite dark as well. should go in all the details of the jar right now, but I touched it. So I obviously will correct the shape later. It's just a simple jar that I found. So still working on the background, even though it's kind of light and white. If you squint and compare it with the jar, it's not as light. Oh, sorry, when you compare it not with the jar, with the flowers. When you compare it with the jar, jar is darker. So it's a little bit darker behind here at the bottom. Again, I have this little bits that I can wipe off later. And it's very light in here, but not completely white. Just going carefully around these ones, carefully, but at the same time not worry too much if I touch any of those, because it's always work in process and you can correct it. So I think I missed the gap here, so I'm going to paint that one, and then if some of my flowers go off the canvas, it's also not a problem. So now I have a big lighter spot shape over here that I'm going to paint quickly. So this is a, like I mentioned before, this is a blocking stage, but it's a very important stage because that's when your eyes are the freshest, and that's when you see fresh, because the more longer you look at it, the more you start kind of losing it in your head. So you have to concentrate on this stage. That's why sometimes I say try not to talk as much, but at the same time you need to explain this important stage as well. That's why I try to separate them sometimes in a few different stages. So, and the last bit of the puzzle is my tabletop. So put yellow, ochre and white, and I probably will add some blue to get that coolness and harmony in the painting. So it's yellow, ochre, white and ultramarine. So okay, I didn't do cast shadow, so I'm going to do cast shadow. Cast shadow is very, I think it's one of the darkest, has a lot of blue in it, and it's one of the darkest parts. It's very funny that I started doing the jar and I completely forgot about it. So it's kind of in this range. I mixed white and brown and painted. So cast shadow, the further it goes away, the more it gets blurred. So I'm not painting it sharp. All shadows are not very sharp. So there is some blue on tabletop here as well. So it's kind of like this. So I didn't feel like all the gaps for this whites and greens and things, it's not that important. I will be filling the smaller bits later with synthetic brush. So I'll try first this synthetic brush that I have right now, see how the paint will lay, and if I like it I keep it, if not I can change it. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to do this daffodil in the middle. part of it. And then I have another daffodil that has more yellow. So as you can see, I start working on some details now, and I think that brush is not the best actually for some details. I may change it. See how it goes. So I have lemon light, and I have cadmium yellow light as well. So lemon light and cadmium lemon. So I will be working on, oh, that's the wrong one, so I have to go back to my brown. So at this point I'm just going through the main flowers, and again this is just not full detail, it's going into more detail, I would say now, and more detailed, like decide which individual flowers will be important. So I may go even in with the smaller brush in the middle of some daffodils, because I guess it's logical to do this now rather than later. There's a little yellow in the middle, and I find that bigger brush is actually better. Maybe I will take some kind of middle brush, better for the task I'm doing right now, working on those kind of this shape of the cup. I just find it's better than the brush I had before, so I had to resort to it again. So there are lots of variations of yellow and brown and in these flowers. So this is a bigger, and you see that when I work with a softer brush, it can actually go over top of some petals when you work on the contours of those. So that's very helpful with a softer brush. So like here I have stems going down into the jar. So I'm working with greens and flowers at the same time because I want to kind of work on silhouette. I'll have to paint the jar again, but for now the important thing is to get the silhouettes of these petals, and not all of them are evenly distributed. So just now attention more than anything else. Attention to colors and shapes. And they have these ridges on their flowers. And I don't want to go through the like huge amount of detail as well. I only want to get the main flowers. So I think this is one of the main flowers. That's a little bit dark. It's a little bit dark, but it's work in progress. So I just want to show at least one individual flower, how you paint it, or how I paint it. So there is a little bit of light falling on that one, and a little bit of light on this petal. And I just keep going with the light and see what I see. Squint where I need to squint. Keep reminding myself, squint, 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 because that's important. And try to find the right color temperature and the right what I was going to say the right color temperature, the right values and colors. So that's how I would work on the flowers, like, and I can try to show the white one, for example. So white one is cooler, so I'm adding some white, and I see variations of green in it as well. So this one in the light. And the main thing, try not to lose what you had already. So that's why sometimes it's careful. Observation is required. Like, for example, I had some leaf here. I will still keep the leaf. And painting around the flowers. For example, here, the shape of the petal. I have 6 petals on daffodil. And because it's one of the main ones, I want to make sure I get the petals for this one right, and it means then the eye will read right for the others as well. It's not very well lit at the back, so, and then I have some green in the middle. And to make it look like a daffodil, just have to paint around here to make the petal more look like a petal. Same with the others, but because I have lots of other daffodils at the back, I need to also make sure that all the daffodils don't disappear. So something like this. So that probably will be a longer still life for me, because I put more flowers there, and depending how much detail I will go into some of them. So I'll show also how I'm doing greens. I'm not going to film all of it, but I just want to show, so you have this very bright greens and daffodils. So not all of them, but some stems you can do like this, just to show. And the others will still stay very dark. The main thing not to go into super details with them. So I paint over that, but it's cooler here. I notice that it's cooler, so I'm going to leave this and paint over it. I think there is even some kind of blue I can see in this petal. See how blue will change. Not too much blue, but just some variations of blue. I think we'll do a little bit of brighter job. So somehow I finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, I thought I finished with more. I think because I got the shape of this one is wrong. It's a little bit lower. A little bit lower, so everything will depend on how much of detail you want to put in your flower and how you want to look at. Do you want to look at more kind of impressionist, or do you want to look at more as very realistic detailed one? So I think I prefer sometimes to look more and more like impressionist. In recently before I was trying to do more realistic, but now I find looking more impressionist actually gives it more interesting appearance. So it all depends on how much detail you want to give it to. So this one a little bit at the background, but still it's in the light. So I will work on this one next. And I don't think I will go all the way with all of them. All the way means I'm not going to film all of it, but if you find this interesting, go into details. I mean, which flower I can do separate video just to look at one particular flower and go through the like petals and things like this. Sometimes some people prefer it that way, they're interested in that, but I think it's depends what you like, because you can make it look very realistic and go through each petal, but at the same time you may lose the whole picture sometimes. That's why I think I should stick to my impressionist style. There are some whites going there. The other thing is to look like a correct silhouette and things like this. That's important, because that's what makes them look like real flowers. And once you got your block in right, I hope I did mine right, then it's not a huge amount of effort in your brain. It's more like just patience. Go for each flower. So I think because I already have 34 minutes, and I think attention span for most of people close already, and it becomes boring and you start falling asleep. I think I'm going to stop my video, but if you, like I said, interested in detailed paintings, I may do some details on just on individual flower. Then it will not be as pressing to watch it. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I see if I make another video on daffodils as well, because it's one of my favorite flowers in spring, and I can see that I have lots other comings as well. So just let me know in the comments and I will try to do what you want me to do. And I wish everyone happy painting and happy spring. See you soon.